Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome back to Comedian MTG. My name is Ian. On this week's episode, we are covering Treasure Series 7 by the Ka0s Tournaments. This is a classic online tournament. We had 99 players for this cEDH tournament. We're going to break down the top 16 performing decks from this tournament today. Going to be going through all these, taking a little bit of a look at these decks. I got to admit, there are some definitely spicy decks at this tournament, and not ones that I was expecting. Now, you may know that there was also a second tournament this very weekend, which was the Bonfire event, which is a smaller 64-person Philadelphia-based cEDH tournament run by Eminence Gaming. I was at that tournament, and we will definitely be doing some coverage of that tournament here on the channel. But as of right now, we're covering Treasure Series 7 by Ka0s Tournaments. If you like videos like this, make sure to destroy that smash button, that like button. It helps YouTube know that you enjoy stuff like this, and it's free. Literally costs you $0. It costs one small movement of your hand, whether it is to grab a mouse or click on that little like button right on your screen. Otherwise, if you are interested in helping this channel go and grow and helping stuff like this, check out patreon.com/comedianmtg. Any support there helps this channel so much. It helps me continue to make more and more content. As you noticed, last couple weeks I pushed out multiple pieces of content a week. So if you like stuff like that, or if you're interested in supporting us through the coaching tier, more information will be available for that later in the episode. Without any further ado, let's break down this tournament. We have back-to-back top 16th place finishes by Tuka here with this Prosh list, Chord of Cares Keep Chaos by Tuka. Now, Tuka was nice enough to reach out to me in between these last two tournaments because I had posed a lot of questions about this deck to Tuka and sort of the general wilds out there. And also, if I ever talk about your deck on this channel, feel free to leave comments down below or shoot me a DM if you have any clarification, things like that, because it helps people stay more informed. And if you're like me and you want people to be informed on this wonderful format we call cEDH, feel free to jump in the comments down below. Let's check out Tuka's list here. So for those who don't know, Prosh was a commander way back in the day that was very well known as being the definitive food chain commander way back in the olden times. Last week I sort of posited that this deck still had some legs and it got some new outlets to it, which is very true. But when I was talking to Tuka about it, he basically mentioned the fact that this deck is sort of meant to combo off without really going too hard into the food chain aspects of this list. And I'm noticing this version of the deck, as opposed to the version that Tuka played at the last tournament they played this list, has a significant amount of differences to it. While we have the food chain lines and stuff like that, things like Earthcraft and Crippleth, right? I was able to do some sort of like manual sacrifice loops, which Tuka did mention was actually more of a priority than the actual food chain lines. It was more manual sacrificing loops. But this version's actually running a whole Protean Hulk package. So we have Protean Hulk itself. We have Pattern of Rebirth, which is able to grab you a Protean Hulk with one sacrifice, and a lot of stuff like that. So this pile, this version of this list, very, very cool, and very cool that it is focused on these sort of atypical sacrifice effects. Also, a 3-color deck playing Magus of the Moon, which is pretty sweet. But once again, if you're on an Earthcraft strategy, it makes sense that you're playing a decent amount of basics anyways, right? So might as well take advantage of the basics here with Magus of the Moon. But I'm really noticing 1 swamp, 2 forests. You know, that's pretty brazen. No mountains, obviously, because, Magus of the Moon. Oh, actually, sorry, 1 mountain. I misspoke. But Magus of the Moon is able to take out your other lands and make them into mountains. So this list being very light on basics for a Magus Earthcraft deck. But, when you have a bunch of different fetch lands, you have 9 legal fetch lands in your color combination, it's not that hard to actually be able to go and grab a basic. And Tuka, smart enough to be playing a Prismatic Vista in the list, another way to just go and grab any of the basics that you need to be able to start comboing off with this deck. Urza Saga, very interesting land as well in this list. Able to grab you Skull Clamp, which I assume is a big one. I love seeing Vat of Rebirth. This is one of those cards that I have been very proud of saying that I saw it in like a pre-release for, I believe this is All Will Be One. And I saw this card and I was like, wow, this seems like it could be very, very strong in a very specific strategy. Not knowing what that strategy was, and knowing that someday I might see it in a cEDH deck, but honestly, I did not think it would be this soon, but it is so hot in this deck because you are trying trying to sacrifice things as just like a main part of your strategy. So it makes a lot of sense that a card that could get counters from sacrificing and then give you a value reanimate, perfect for this type of strategy. So really cool tech here in this list. Shout out to Tuka for just, bringing the spice week after week and for making some pretty significant changes to a deck that was already pretty intricate and doing another good performance with it. We have Tivit, aka Bad Atraxa here by Click C121. It's like Click It, I guess. I don't know. Click It. This is an Atraxa list. It's pretty classic Atraxa. New additions being Talion. Talion is one of those cards that's really good in a deck like Atraxa, right? Like you need those cards that bridge the early, the mid, and the late game with Atraxa before you can actually get Atraxa out, get it on the battlefield, have it start doing stuff, right? And this is one of those ways that you can really start doing that and have Talion come down, have your Rhystic Study, your Mystic Remore, all of your card advantage engine, your mana advantage engines, all of these things like the One Ring, come down early, get your advantage engines online and allow you to start drawing a bunch of cards and doing this 4-color good stuff soup until you can get your Atraxa down and then just completely take over the game because of how powerful this one card is. Yeah, nothing too insane in the list, just some updates. I like seeing the inclusion of Eternal Witness, which is a card that sometimes is in these lists, sometimes not, but I like it a lot here. Congrats to our pilot. We have another blast from the past, maybe not as past-esque as a deck like Prosh, but we have Urza here. Urza, Lord High Artificer, a Taboo Breaker by Vasher. This is a straight up mono blue Urza deck. Love that this list is playing creatures. The polymorph build for a long time was like unquestionably the best way to build the deck, and then the reality chip came out and a couple people said, hey, this is a reason to play creatures. And every single version of Urza that has actually put up a result in the past basically 2.5 years has been playing the reality chip, and there's been no poly Urza lists that have been doing well. So it's pretty clear that Urza's maybe moving toward the chip base if you want to actually put up some results with the deck. The cards in here are strong. Urza is just a ridiculously efficient mana creator, and the trouble with the list is always creating enough advantage so that you can actually turn the corner, hence the chip being so good, and hence inclusions like Fairy Mastermind and the rest of it. A lot of card advantage stuff. I love seeing Lorien reveal in the deck like this because it's that late game card draw and it's that early game advantage. And then we got the full key package here because key plus One Ring is just like perfect Urza combination, right? It's already all the stuff you already want to be doing in the deck, and all of a sudden, boom, now these cards are immediately creating a ridiculous amount of advantage. The One Ring is so strong, and you already want to be like untapping and tapping artifacts and stuff like that with these cards. So it's purely so good in the deck, and being able to grab the One Ring very efficiently is super easy. I also love seeing Power Artifact in this version of the deck. Haven't seen that card in quite some time, but loving it. We have Wounded Satellite is My Crush by Punny Name. We got another Atraxa deck here. This one is not running the Invasion of Ikoria like a bunch of other Atraxa decks are right now. This one seems to be a little bit more focused on the artifact package that not all the Atraxa lists are currently on, but I tend to like these versions of Atraxa a little bit better just because I like that they are not leaning into creature packages when they don't really have to be, which is kind of nice. This one's only running Finale as sort of a payoff for that, but yeah, you're doing food chain stuff, you're doing Displace Your Kitten, all that jank. And as I mentioned before, you're trying to get your engines online, get your Atraxa, win the game. So this one not playing Talion, which as I said, I would definitely opt for if I was looking to be playing Atraxa moving forward, but very interesting to see this list doing well. King Ping by Raziland. Love the name of the deck. We got another Ob Nixilis deck here. As I mentioned last episode, Ob was one of those cards that people were like, oh, is it finally moving to a deck that, it hadn't done a result in quite some time, and then now it's gonna come back in the top 16 again here. This is the second one in a row, or it was every other tournament. And either ways, Ob is here, and it's perhaps one of the most card advantage heavy decks in the format just because of the fact that the strategy bleeds so well into itself, right? You've got all of these different ways to pay off, ping your opponents, and then just flip a bunch of cards into exile and hopefully be able to win the game with this faster storming tile strategy. This is really one of those decks that, like, if you don't kill Ob Nixilis or you don't play a rule law effect, you're basically dead. And otherwise, the deck just goes super fast. Also has a straight up one card win condition with all will be one. Super cool stuff. Ob is very, very scary when they get the engine going, but the game plan's got to be disrupt the engine before they can start popping off, because if they do, you're done. Is it a pirate? No, not really. By Freedom Waffle and Samurai Dancer. This is another Malcolm Ka0s list, which was, when I brought it to the last Ka0s Treasure Series tournament, I kind of thought it was more of a fun, silly deck that I wouldn't be seeing a bunch, but we've had a top 4 with it recently. We've had one here in the top 16, so I'm kind of surprised to be seeing Malcolm Ka0s doing so well. But it's been popping off, it's a lot of the stuff that we covered in our last top 4 video from the Mox Masters. Has the Niv plan like my version, like the Nezahal plan like my version, but also running these Ingenious Artillerist, the Hedron Detonator, all of these things that when their creature type is changed to pirate, we'll be able to combo off with Malcolm, like Trigger Charm and Artificial Evolution, as well as Maskwood Nexus and Arcane Adaptation. So these versions of the decks really going hard into the creature type hack effects, and also going hard into these Mizzet Curiosity combos and running the Underworld Breach lines. As I mentioned, a lot more proactive version of the Malcolm Ka0s than what I was playing. I was definitely playing a grindier mid-range version of the list, focusing on a little higher card quality. But this one with the layered wins is a really quick and efficient way to just be able to combo off on your opponents, and running wheels and stuff like that to be able to accelerate that game plan and get it done faster. So really cool stuff, and really cool to see a list that had been really in the dark for quite some time start to really pick up some momentum, some steam. Sissy Super Friends, cEDH by Baneslayer. We've got Sissy doing the Sissy thing. This is a pretty standard Sissy list at this point. Definitely, I think a little closer, a little sort of hybrid between what Malcolm and I usually run, which is pretty cool. This list, opting for Selvala and stuff like that. Obviously, some of the best mana engines with Fabro and stuff like that. Adding the new Talion to be able to, just provide 2 colors for your Sissy activation while also providing a stupid amount of card advantage. This list not doing the One Ring Mana Vault shenanigans like Malcolm's list, but also running some of the higher drops like Urtai and Sakashima in the deck to be able to do those value grinds. This one also running Bowmasters, just a good control piece, mostly also good at sniping your opponent's Bowmasters because they will at certain points just start mowing down your Sissy creatures. So definitely not the worst thing to be doing with the list by any means, and also it's an outlet for infinite mana, which is pretty decent. Apart from that, pretty standard Sissy stuff. One of the best decks in the format, really solid if you can learn it. It's difficult, but the payoff is definitely there. We got Vadric Value cEDH by Shalom Zaki, maybe? I don't know. This is Vadric Astral Archmage Storm. I am so happy that this deck exists. This is super cool, and a commander that I was a giant fan of when I first saw it printed, and was kind of disappointed that it didn't do anything, but here we have it showing up at this Chaos and doing something. It's sort of like the Mizzix of the modern era. Vadric becomes basically a Baral when you cast it for the first half. You kind of get it down early. It's a good value engine. It doesn't explode in the same way Mizzix does, but it's not also as all in as it feels like Mizzix is too. This was one where you can sort of play like draw go for a little bit of time, play a little bit of that tempo game, and then all of a sudden your Tezzeret's Gambit is drawing you 3 cards for free, and you're exiling 3 and making 3 with the Inspired Tinkering, and suddenly your deck starts getting out of hand. Pass in Flames is a single mana, and you start just comboing off Storm. You get to a point where you generate a ridiculous amount of mana. Cursed Totem, awesome deal to break parity with in this deck. Definitely Underworld Breach payoff list, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton of hard win conditions in the deck apart from that, but I'm wondering if there are some combos here, and if you know sort of the finishers of this deck, would be very interesting. Defabricate also, definitely super cool to see this card. I know people were sort of excited about it when it first came out, but no one's really been talking about it since. Change the Equation is another one where some people were mentioning its existence, but I didn't think people were going to seriously play it. Yeah, I'm wondering if there's something with Bolt and the invert. Okay, I know Bolt Reiterate is the thing sometimes, so I assume there's some sort of mana engine here with that. Maybe you reiterate Buyback a Seething Song. Oh, okay, so if you reiterate Buyback a Seething Song and Vadric reduces all of the colorless, the buyback can be free, right? Okay, so basically you have to create a scenario where you're reiterating a red spell that makes more than the red mana values of those spells. Okay, here we go. This is where you start comboing off of this deck. Okay, so you get all these, you do the reiterate loops, suddenly you make infinite red mana, and then you bolt everybody. Okay, I'm there. I got there. Cool stuff. But yeah, definitely reiterate loops. Something that people talked about a very long time ago, but definitely was not something that was just kind of done in a significant amount of time because they're kind of hard to get off. But when you have a commander that reduces these spells mana values, it's pretty decent. I definitely want to give this list a little bit of a spin sometime because it looks super sweet and it's very much my type of Magic. You know, is it Storm, but also not completely all in Storm because you can play the tempo game, like just hot stuff. I Love Humans by Ganesha. This is a blue farm list, heavy on the humans. I wonder if that had something to do with the name of the deck. This is a pretty classic blue farm list, Professional Facebreaker being like one of the spicier cards, he said, sort of squinting. Running the Containment Priest, you know, stuff that Brian Koval sort of originated. And apart from that, like nothing too crazy, just doing blue farm stuff. Love to see the One Ring in blue farm. It's a good card, should be in there. Little surprised not to see Talion in blue farm because it's like a One Ring that can actually swing in, give you Timna triggers, and also is harder to counter and is really good. Been surprised at how many lists are slow to throw Talion in the 99, if I'm being honest. I think it's a very, very powerful card, and I think we've just heard nothing but reports of people resolving it and drawing a bunch, and I don't understand why it has to be the leader of the deck to earn its spot in the 99, especially when cards like One Ring exist. It's a little harder to cast than One Ring, but still provides a ton of value. So I think the card's being slept on just a little bit in the 99 of decks. We broke Necropotons by cEDH. Necropotons, definitely a card no one's ever tried to do anything broken with, ever. This is a Breya list. I was talking with a couple other folks about Breya recently, and the conclusion I kept coming to is I don't know why you would play Breya instead of being able to play a Kenrith, because Breya is basically 90% of the time just an infinite mana outlet in the command zone. And that being said, I don't know why you would, you know, opt to just lose the color green and not get Kenrith. This list kind of answering that question because you can flash in an Isochron Scepter, make infinite mana, and then play your Breya, which happens to be an artifact if you play a Liberator or a Shimmermere. Instant speed wins are pretty cool, and I think that's kind of where you get this Shimmermere stuff. It's pretty interesting, the idea that you can like resolve a Necropotence, flash in your Shimmermere, make infinite mana, and then be able to just win the game. With your commander, once again, at instant speed because of the fact that it is an artifact. You know, traditionally, these instant speed lines don't just get to go like infinite mana, I win, right? So that's kind of cool because it's not something that you usually see with these, and the instant speed nature is, as I mentioned, pretty cool. And then Auriok Salvager is the same thing, right? Because if you have lines on them and having flash, you can be able to bring it back to your hand, flash it in instant speed, crack it. So yeah, I like to see this Liberator Shimmermere tech. It's pretty sweet. I don't know how amazing it is, but right now it's definitely clearly something that caught enough people off guard to be able to make it to the top 16. I'm really curious, if you're the pilot of this deck, how often did the fact that you can flash your creatures, permanents, etc. in actually change the tempo of the game? How much did it actually shift things in your favor? Because yeah, I've been saying for a long time that flash strategies are very strong, and being able to win at flash speed is insanely strong. So I'm curious to hear how much that was relevant to the deck. Also, just want to point out Born Upon the Wind in here as well, so not just Liberator stuff. Elsha 2023, the future of Elsha. We're living in it now, by Artificium. This is Elsha, classic Elsha, mid-range stuff. Love seeing the Shorakai tech. This stuff is so cool. I said love seeing the Shorakai tech stuff, expecting to maybe see a Manifold Key or a Voltaic Key in this list, because you're on the One Ring, you're on Shorakai. It just feels like it should be in here. I know Unwinding Clock is obviously very, very strong. Ancestral Knowledge, real cool tech for this deck. You look at the top 10, exile a bunch of them, and then put them back in any order. Very quick way with Elsha to ensure you go from like, okay, I get to look at one or two cards with Elsha too. I'm probably going to win the game with the amount I've trimmed the deck down. Elsha down to 24 lands. It's a deck that's very, very proactive, very explosive. You want to be channeling a bunch of stuff right off the top of your library. Obviously, Breach Engine's main way of winning the game. But I like this Unwinding Clock stuff. The ability to, once again, storm off at instant speed like we've been talking about. Very, very strong. Elsha, giving all the things on the top of your deck flash is very, very relevant. I also like that they're on Dockside in this deck, but they are not afraid to play around, and they're playing Torpor Orb too, right? Elsha is a deck that feeds the ever-living crud out of a Dockside, so I love seeing it not just do that. You know, being able to use your Docksides when you have them, but not fall for them if you don't. Very cool stuff. I love seeing Elsha reach innovation. again, a lot of people will compare it to a Grixis or a 4-color Sans green deck and be like, why would you play Elsha at times like this? And these pilots are actually answering, showing the explosivity the list has and how much, general card advantage you can get in the command zone, especially when you build your deck intelligently and efficiently. The Cat in the Time Sieve Chaos Treasure 7 by Cooley. Tivit stuff. Tivit in general. Lorien revealed, not normally a card I associate with Tivit, but apart from that, that's the real spice of this deck. It's a pretty generic Tivit list, but Tivit is back doing stuff after its quick hiatus of getting its teeth kicked in, during Festival of Nights, and then Cal making the comeback, bringing it to top 4. Here we go with the Tivit list. Tivit's still very strong, still gonna be able to do its thing. Interested to see Bowmasters in this deck specifically. I always feel like when I play Tivit, and this has been mentioned to me by multiple other Tivit pilots, that it's just not a good Bowmasters deck, but Tivit's still doing his thing, and if Bowmasters helps you get along there, that's totally fine too. I think the list is still in a very solid place. I think people who play the deck smartly, play the deck intelligently, and play the tempo of the game correctly, and don't treat it like a turbo Tivit deck, are gonna just have success with it repeatedly. Before we get into our top 4, I'm gonna remind you we do cEDH coaching here over at Comedian MTG. If you are interested in cEDH coaching, bring your game to that next level, hit me up in DMs either on Discord, my email comedianmtg@gmail.com, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter. If you want to get that cEDH coaching by a player who's made more top cuts with diverse strategies than I'm pretty sure any other player at this point, this is a pretty good thing to check out. I also just added gameplay coaching to the roster, so I'm setting up my own little Discord just for people who are interested in gameplay coaching, and the idea is that myself and 3 people will do a 2-hour block of playing games, and then after every game concludes, we take about 10-15 minutes, talk about the things that happened in the game, points that were really important, and then players can, for a reduced rate compared to a normal coaching session, get a one-on-one session where we go over stuff that happened in the game, go over recording, stuff like that. So really excited about this new type of coaching. The first one should be coming up right the day after this, or the day before this video airs, so it's really exciting stuff, and I'm really excited for the future of this channel and the future of cEDH coaching through this channel. Also, we are getting closer and closer to LotusCon. If you don't know about LotusCon, click the links down below to find out more. It's happening. It is real close. There's so many big cEDH tournaments in this next 2 months, LotusCon being a huge one. Time Twisters on the line. There's so many Time Twisters on the line with these tournaments. There's also Commander Challenge 9, which is coming up in a week. Come check that out. The links for both tournaments will be in the description below. Commander Challenge 9 will be in Texas in the middle of Anime North, so you get literally a ticket for this entire anime convention, and you get to go in, do a tournament, awesome Texas tournament, and it had supposedly $12,000 of prizes. I'm flying out to Texas for this thing. It's gonna be sweet. Back to our top 4. We have Multiplicatin plus Subtraxa equals, yeah, I know it says boobs. Nice. By Sam Sapper. Real nice, Sam. Real nice. Confusing ass name ending with the word boobs. Real cool. No, I'm kidding. You're fine. We have Atraxa list here. A lot of stuff we were talking about earlier, except for this Atraxa list is bringing the heat. This is a Hoarding Broodlord Atraxa deck. And the cool part about this list is it's not really playing any Reanimator stuff. This is just a Neoform Birthing Pod Eldritch Evolution my Atraxa strategy, right? This is converting. I play Atraxa, I hit it with a Neoform, the Hoarding Broodlord comes down, I win the game. That's just sweet. I don't know. It's sweet stuff. What's really interesting is that there's no Peer into the Abyss in this deck. There's also not, there's not a there is a sacrifice. My bad. So there is sacrifice in this list. So you can get your Saw in half to get 2 Broodlords. You sacrifice, get 4 black mana. You get 2 cards, and I'm assuming, my guess would be the 2 cards that you get would be Food Chain. Oh, haha, foolish me. This deck's not even playing Food Chain. Oh my goodness, that I didn't even notice one of the craziest parts about this deck. It's not even playing Food Chain. Okay, so if that's the case, then I'm assuming what the case is you go get Beseech the Mirror, and then you get Consultation, and then you sacrifice one of your Broodlords to Beseech the Mirror, go get your Thassa's Oracle, get the Consultation. That is spicy as hell. I was just like, oh yeah, food chain's the obvious go-to here. Just kidding, there is no food chain. All right, so this is just a pure consultation Hoarding Broodlord. I genuinely don't know how this deck wins if Thassa's Oracle gets exiled. That's really funny to me. But yeah, this is definitely one of the spiciest innovations I have seen off of Atraxa. This is a very different Atraxa list than basically anyone else I've seen play this deck, and it's pretty sweet. But as I said, no way to be able to win without Thoracle from my reading comprehension skills with this deck. Oh yeah, I guess you have Finale and can make infinite mana by... I don't think you can make infinite mana. Maybe not. I think you can make some mana. Yeah, there's not even an Endurance or an Eternal Witness. How does this deck win? That's crazy. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, hell, got top 4 without any win conditions. Pretty cool deck. Sweet. But yeah, I mean, congrats to our pilot here, Sam. If you watch this video, how do you win if your Thoracle gets exiled, dog? That shit's really funny. I don't know. We have Is It Really with Royal Bomb Squad. Before we even get into this deck, I am super stoked because this is a deck I worked on with Is It Really maybe 4 days before this tournament. We had a coaching session about this list the week beforehand. So yeah, it felt really good to get the DM from them being like, hey, just made top 4 and only lost because 2 of my win attempts in a row were countered. And I'm like, hell yeah, good for you. Yeah, this is a pretty standard Kenrith mid-range list. It's got that kind of nature to it where it's like you don't really care about Kenrith. If I'm being honest, it's a 5-color mid-range Nas good stuff deck that happens to have Kenrith as an infinite mana outlet, but realistically Kenrith is there to like maybe sometimes win with Phantasmal Image, but realistically probably never actually get cast unless the game's like super stacked out, right? Like there's not even like a Jewel Lotus in this deck. There's no Guardianship, no Deflecting Swat, none of those cards. Is a very mid-rangey, like a mid-Nas 5-color Nas deck that's just trying to use in the advantage engines, kind of like what we talked about the Atraxa, right? We got your Talions, you got, you know, we got 2 different ways to make infinite mana, you know, Auriok Salvagers combos and Emil Dockside loops, not to mention like Fimage Dockside loops and like a bunch of those other like more intricate Kenrith Dockside loops. But yeah, you got your card advantage engines, you got 5 colors, super solid stuff. You got your intuition lines, get your Breach. So you're winning with Breach, you're winning with Thassa's Oracle, and you're doing a bunch of infinite mana Kenrith stuff. Congrats to Is It, and super cool to see once again that super quick turnaround of like we tech this deck a couple days before the tournament and they top 4 with it. Hell yeah. We got Talion by Tom MTG. Super excited about this deck. It's been one that's been popping off lately. And this deck in particular kind of looks like the Nimrus deck that topped Mox Masters a little bit a while ago. I love Sheoldred being played in this deck. I think Sheoldred is a super smart way to actually start adding a clock to Talion, because from what I've heard from people who are playing it in the tournaments and who've been trying it out, is that it's having trouble just closing the corner on the games, especially if you have a Thoracle on the field, right? Or especially if you can't find your Thassa's Oracle, I should say. But this one definitely using damage as an actual resource. We have a Rug of Smothering, a card that no one was talking about for a very long time because we thought it did too little damage. You have Sheoldred, and then you have obviously Blood Chief Ascension, which if you see my deck tech on this commander, you know it's a very strong one. We also have Dystopia here. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls any green or white permanents, he or she sacrifices a green or white permanent. Just super hateful card on the green and white decks in the format. Get dressed down and a bunch of other control pieces here. But yeah, Talion is that free card advantage. You know, one of the things I've been telling all the Talion pilots who I've talked to and who I've been coaching with is like, you got to do the Yuriko thing, right? You got to play your free spells. You got to play your Snuff Outs, your Deadlies, your Misdirections, your Force of Wills, all the free spells, because Talion's just going to draw you a ton of cards. You don't have to worry about card disadvantage. You get to stick your commander, have it immediately have a bunch of stuff it can do, even if it's free, and then play a bunch of control pieces. This one, you know, going as hard as just Counterspell, regular old Counterspell, and I love seeing that in a slower controlling deck in the format. A lot of tempo pieces here, even playing Subtlety. And I wanted to wait until the end to talk about this spice. I've actually heard about this pretty recently. Thada Adel Inquisitor, which is notably like a vintage commander, so a no bandless commander win con. This got Island Walk, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, search that player's library for an artifact card, exile it, till the end of turn you can play that card. And from what I'm hearing about this card is some people play as tempo piece, you steal your opponent's Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Crypts, all of that stuff. But then people are using it to steal their opponent's One Rings, which I think is pretty sweet because you get to a point where those just start taking over a game and they can provide you a ton of advantage. So definitely really cool to see Vada Adele in this list. I love all the free counter magic. I love the control pieces in this list. This list is hot. Congrats to Tom. Tom is one of those pilots who doesn't go to every tournament, but shows up every once in a while, never plays the same deck, brings the spice, and usually does pretty decently. So seriously, shout out to Tom. Great job. And our number one deck, not having won a tournament since the DDM tournament of 2019 or 2018, now that I think about it. This is crazy. Tremnek coming in, and then we shouted out Tremnek playing Tatiova a little while ago. They were worried that Bowmasters was going to kill this deck, but nah, wins a whole tournament with this list. I know Tremnek has talked about this deck being their passion project. Tatiova is sweet and strong and powerful. A big up to this deck was Nissa, Resurgent, Animus, which I've talked to a couple Tatiova pilots about this card being able to be super strong in these lists. You get a Shia out, you get like a Lotus Cobra style effects in Nissa, and you start really being able to combo off with these things. Just super value engine. The idea between Tatiova is like you get any of these extra turn effects, you start playing your land drops, you play a fetch land, you crack the fetch land, you get it back with your Crucible of Worlds or your Ramunap Excavator, and then you're like, okay, every single turn I am drawing 6 or 7 cards, and then, oh, hey, found one of my infinite combos, I'll make an extra turn, I'll use Ghostly Flicker to be able to flicker a bunch of stuff and be able to draw my entire deck. The deck's super sick, it's super sweet. It's one of those decks that doesn't do anything for a really long time, shows up, crushes a tournament, does really well in a tournament, and then disappears off the face of the earth again. So congrats to Tremnek for, bringing back a deck that a lot of people have just kind of moved on from. Showing up, crushing it with this list, and doing really well. So sweet job, and nice to see Tatiova back. Tatiova's a cool deck. It's been a scourge of casual Commander for a long time, but just sort of a player in cEDH and not one people take too seriously. But I love seeing it here. It's really cool. Anytime a new innovative list is, able to actually compete at the cEDH table when it's not known for being so is pretty sweet for me. Thank you all for watching this video. What do you think of these top decks? There's way more spice in this tournament than I was expecting. We have Vadric, we have Mono Blue Urza, we got Prosh, we have Tati over here. Really cool stuff and really sweet tournament. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Check us out on Patreon if you want to help. I cannot stress enough how much those people help this channel just be a thing. And hit me up about cEDH coaching, comedianmtg@gmail.com, Discord, Twitter, any of those things. Feel free to hit me up on there. Thank you all for watching. I cannot thank you enough. You're an amazing audience, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.